I'd like to thank some of the community organizations that made this event possible. First, let's hear a round of applause for our co-sponsors and hosts of today's celebration, Fairy Godmothers Against Drunk Driving. Several blue-haired ladies in fluffy dresses floated into the air, kept aloft by the little flapping wings on their backs. They all wore t-shirts with FGMADD on them. The crowd applauded as the fairies fluttered around the room. I also want to thank the League of Wicked Voters, the National Association for the Advancement of Handsome Princes, Big Brothers and Ugly Stepsisters of America, and Ever Afters for the ethical treatment of talking animals. Their hard work and dedication to this important project has been vital to its success. The crowd applauded again. When Ferryport Landing Elementary was destroyed 4 days ago, I came out to sight, and do you know what I heard? There was a brief silence and then a loud squeaky fart. Sabrina turned and saw Puck fall over with laughter. For once, one of his childish pranks was well timed. Ruined Charmy's stupid little event. Sabrina secretly cheered. I'm starting to enjoy evil Puck. I heard the future calling, Charmy said angrily. He regained his composure and started again, and I saw an opportunity for our children. When I talk about our children, I don't mean the children of everyone in this town. I'm talking about ever after children. For far too long, there has been no room for them at the head of their class. This new school represents an end to that. The crowd roared with approval. I have personally overseen this project, supervising the work, even rolling up my sleeves and picking up a shovel to help out, Charmy said, causing some in the audience to laugh good-naturedly. Borman and Swinehart Construction have done an amazing job. It's Swinehart and Borman Construction, Swinehart shouted. No, it's not. It's Borman and Swinehart Construction, his partner argued. Charmy cleared his throat and the bickering ended. And we couldn't have done any of this without the generous donations of our town's 3 wealthiest families. Everyone give a round of applause to Little Miss Muffet and the spider. I mean Mr. and Mrs. Harry Arachnid, Beauty and the Beast, and of course the Frog Prince and his lovely princess. The 3 couples stood off to the side, obviously fuming but doing their best to hide it. They waved half-heartedly to the crowd. Sabrina was sure their generous donations were little more than bribes to keep them out of prison. Only a few days earlier, the Grimms had discovered that these wealthy donors had gotten rich selling their ever-after children to Rumpelstiltskin. Some people asked me, Maid Charming, what's the big deal? There are only a few ever-after children in this town. Why are we called a fuss? Well, I'll tell you why I'm making a fuss, because you people elected me to make a fuss. He was again met with wild applause. The new school will have separate, exclusive classes for ever-after children that will teach our heritage, traditions, and values. It will feature a cafeteria offering lunches that meet the special dietary needs of our unique offspring. And lastly, it will be named after one of our own. From this day forward, the children of Ferryport Landing were the human or ever after in London, a school named for the most famous ever after of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, I proudly present to you Ferryport Landing's answer to the call of the future. Mr. Seven tugged on a large curtain behind the mayor. It fell to the floor, revealing a banner that read William Charming Elementary. Below it was a huge bronze statue of the mayor standing with his chest puffed out and a wide grin on his face. Several frightened-looking children crouched at his feet, gazing up at him as if he were their only hope for survival. The room was silent. Then a grumbling began. Only Mr. Seven clapped, and he did desperately, as if he feared for his job. Suddenly, Sabrina was shoved from behind. A group of people was forcing their way through the crowd and up to the podium. A chubby woman wearing a long red dress and a golden crown climbed up on the stage and snatched the microphone out of the mayor's hand. Her face was covered in white powder, and a little black birthmark had been drawn on her right cheek. Beside her was a small army of men in colorful uniforms. When Sabrina examined them more closely, she was shocked to discover their bodies were actually playing cards. The Queen of Hearts had arrived. "I don't see any cause to celebrate," the Queen said. "Having to rebuild the school is an unacceptable waste of taxpayer money, and you, Maid Charming, are to blame." Charming was startled, but quickly recovered and smiled widely at the irate woman. "Mrs. Hart, we're not here to debate policy. We're here to dedicate this wonderful new school to the youth of this town." Mr. Silver clapped again, alone. "The school would have had to be rebuilt if it weren't for you," the Queen said as she turned to the crowd. Ever after the Ferryport landing, the sorry excuse for mayor has let us down once again. In the last month, we've had a giant run amok and caused property damage that has yet to be repaired. Our police force has been reduced to one pig, and public services, utilities, and infrastructure have fallen to the wayside. 4 days ago, a perfectly good elementary school was blown to smithereens, and you are footing the bill. This mayor is completely incompetent." "What's incompetent mean?" Daphne asked. "It means he's not good at his job," Sabrina replied. "Ferryport Landing has been in a bit of a budget crisis of late," the mayor said, looking defensive. "I have done the best I could with the resources at hand." "Is that good enough for us?" the Queen cried. Several people in the audience grumbled. A few even shouted, "No!" "No, it's not good enough," the Queen shouted. "But people, you don't even know the worst of it. Mayor Charming laid off 2/3 of the police force so he could deputize the Grahams." A gasp went through the crowd. "That's not exactly what happened," Grim Charming said, smiling with gritted teeth. "So you didn't deputize the Grahams?" "Well, yes, I did," the mayor said, as another gasp ran through the audience. "We were having an emergency. Rumpelstiltskin was going to... he built tunnels. The Grahams have special talents." Charming was obviously rattled. So now the only people who can solve ever-after problems are humans? You heard it yourself, folks. Your elected leader thinks that we can't govern ourselves and that we need help for humans and not just any humans, the Queen raged. "But the family that was responsible for our imprisonment." She turned and pointed an ugly finger right at Granny Rhoda and the girls. "The Grimms!" Sabrina gasped. Never had she had so much rage aimed at her and her family. She'd gotten used to knowing that most people in the town disliked them, but the Queen's anger was rabid, and worse, it was infecting the crowd. Everywhere she looked, furious eyes stared back at them. Instinctively, Sabrina stepped forward, putting herself between the crowd and her family. "Mrs. Hart, I won't have you stand up here and tell this crowd that I'm a fan of the Grimms," Charlie said. "No one despises that family more than I do." "Hey!" Daphne shouted. "We can hear you, you know." The Queen continued to rant. "Who knows how much influence Rhoda and her brood have over the mayor's office? Are they making our laws too? I think it's time for a change. I think it's time for a new vision. We don't need a person who squanders the community's money and betrays its citizens by dealing with the Grimms. I, for one, have had enough." The words were so hateful that Sabrina jumped back in shock. Even Granny looked stunned by their ferocity. "Today, I'm announcing my candidacy for Mayor of Ferryport Landing," the Queen of Hearts declared. "And let me introduce you to the man who will become Ferryport Landing's new sheriff once I'm elected. He's a man of integrity, a man with centuries of experience, a man with legitimate and respect and a career in law enforcement. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to Sheriff Dunsingham." A tall, broad-shouldered man with a handlebar mustache and long curly black hair climbed to the stage. Despite a profound limp in his right leg, he was all aggression, from the deadly steel on his lips to the long scar on his cheek to the clenched fists at his side. He looked at the crowd, unable at first to hide his disgust with all of them, and it forced an insincere smile to his face. Several people cheered. "Maybe we should go," Granny Rhoda said to the girls. "I agree," someone said. Why are you even here? The celebration is forever afters. The family spun around and saw a large group of munchkins gathering nearby. The leader's eyes flamed with rage. I have as much right to be here as you do, Granny Ronald replied tartly. My family has been here as long as any ever after. It's your fault we're trapped here in this town, an enormous small constructor said as it slid along the floor toward the Grimms. An old witch hobbled toward them, pointing her gnarly finger at the family. Charming has been giving you Grimms a free ride for far too long. The Queen is right. It's time for a change. A small crowd of beasties, hobgoblins, and elves formed a tight circle around the family, cutting off their escape and any chance of help from friendly ever afters. We've had enough, a crow as big as a dog squawked. The only thing that has kept you safe until now is the big bad wolf. Now that your mongrel is dead and gone, what will you do? Daphne grabbed Puck's arm. Do something! Sorry, Marshmallow, I told you. And begged, being sinister. Sabrina grabbed his sister's arm. Leave him alone. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. Daphne pulled away from Sabrina and faced Puck again. Well, if we get killed, you'll have no one to annoy all day long. The boy cocked a curious eyebrow and nodded his head. His wings spread and he drew his sword. Back off, you filthy trash muncher, he said to the crow. The Grimms are mine to torment. Take another step and you'll be wishing the wolf was still alive. A Cyclops stepped forward and cracked his knuckles. Boy, I will pound you into pudding. You dare mock me? Puck fumed as his arms morphed into those of gorillas. He pulled back and hit the Cyclops right in the belly, sending him flying backward. The monster knocked ever afters over like bone pins. Who is next? The boy crowed. Who thinks they can take on the trickster king? Just then, a small, angry man standing nearby began to grow in size. His clothing ripped, exposing a sickening green skin underneath. His cane morphed into an ugly, blood-smeared club that was nearly as big as the Cyclops Puck had just flattened. He was a troll, and the largest one Sabrina had ever seen. Worse, he was the angriest one she'd ever seen, too. Ever After scowled in all directions as Ever After scattered in all directions as he stepped through the crowd. Come here, meat, he growled. You are about to suffer one of the worst beatings of your life, troll, Puck said without flinching. Run while you can. The Prince of Fairy isn't some billy goat you can scare off your bridge. Fairy, I'm going to rip you limb from limb and suck on your bones, the troll roared. You don't know how many times I hear that in a day, Puck said. He swung his sword around and smacked the troll in the belly with little effect. The monster looked more annoyed than hurt. With lightning-fast reflections, the brute lunged forward and knocked Puck to the ground, then sat hunched over the boy, flashing his horrible, drool-dripping teeth. His neck muscles clenched as he prepared to feast on the boy. But suddenly there was a popping sound as the boy looked up to see a man materialize from thin air high above the gymnasium floor. He fell hard and fast, landing on top of the troll. The creature grunted with surprise, then bucked and kicked as he tried to remove his unwanted passenger, but the strange man held on. He reached into his overcoat and removed a small ring that he slipped onto his finger. He said a few unintelligible words, and a cloud of black smoke soared around the monster's head, blinding him. That's just about enough, Howard, the stranger shouted at the troll. Now calm down or I'm going to get rough. The troll stumbled around, unable to see. He inadvertently knocked over the statue of Charming and it fell to the ground. Its head broke off and rolled across the floor. Turn your magic off, sorcerer, the troll cried. Are you going to be a good boy? That's the end of this video. I'm sick today, so my voice is kind of strange. Anyways, I'll see you later. Goodbye.